All rise. 34th District Court is now in session. The Honorable Lisa Martin presiding.
You may be seated. Yep, ready. Yep. Calling 201-572 FY State of Michigan versus Dejan Halliburton. Appearances, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Darian Forth here on behalf of the people, P83359.
Good afternoon, Judge. Blaise Kearney on behalf of Mr. Halliburton, who's sitting to my left, the Neighborhood Defender Service of Detroit, P83960.
Dejan Halliburton.
Thank you. This is the day and time set for the preliminary exam in this matter. We first started back on March 15th, 2021. The complaining victim, an issue arose during the beginning of her cross-examination. The matter was scheduled for April the 5th, 2021. There was a capias in the matter, but it was later determined that the defendant was unavailable for another reason. So the matter was rescheduled today at 2 o'clock. It's now 2:09 by the court's clock. Are the parties ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Judge, just have one preliminary issue.
Yes, sir.
I would ask the complainant be excused from the courtroom for discussion of the preliminary issue.
I'm
I would
sorry.
ask the complainant be excused from the courtroom for discussion of the preliminary issue
Okay,
as it pertains to her testimony.
okay. Have you talked to Ms. Fortier about this
I have.
before? Okay,
Judge, I don't have any issue with her stepping outside.
okay. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you, Judge. So as the court's aware, one of my first questions on cross-examination was, you would slash Mr. Halliburton's tires, and her response was, no, that was before. And then the court basically put the stop to the hearing. The witness consulted with counsel. I haven't seen that counsel here today, but my understanding is that she intends to waive her Fifth Amendment privilege based on what Ms. Fortier had communicated to the court. Following that, this is back communications between myself and Ms. Fortier on March 16th and 17th. I inquired if there had been any discussions between the prosecution and Ms. Connerly's counsel about the likelihood of prosecution based on what her testimony would be coming out, if that took vague or specific forms during the course of those negotiations. I simply want to know what the prosecution told Ms. Connerly's lawyer, because I can't ask her those questions, so we'll get into attorney-client privilege if her lawyer told her, hey, Ms. Fortier says, they're not going to charge you for slashing the tires. I think it qualifies under Giglio. Whatever that statement was, the prosecution has an obligation to disclose that. Ms. Fortier said to me, at this time, there's been nothing promised. And I repeated to her a number of times, that's not good enough. I need to know what was said, not that the absence of a promise.
That's correct. We did have an email exchange back and forth in which I informed Mr. Kearney that I also was familiar with the law and what the law says I need to do. And at that time, I indicated to Mr. Kearney that Mr. Nunley, which is the name of who I believe was assigned to the complaining witness in this case, I basically just asked, if there was more to what she'd said to him than the initial disclosure. He indicated to me that there wasn't. I said, okay. And that was pretty much the entire conversation. There had been no promise, no hint of a promise, no even whisper,
No wink and nod.
400 yards away of a promise of her having any immunity in regards to the malicious destruction of property. I think outside of that, any further conversation about it is not relevant to this matter. Ms. Connerly is not the one that is the defendant in this case. She already admitted to doing what she did. I don't think the specifics are relevant. She's testified to what Mr. Halliburton did, and I think that Mr. Kearney obviously should have an opportunity to cross-examine her in regards to the incident specific to the charges that Mr. Halliburton faces. But that the slashing of the tires outside of her saying, yes, I did it, is not relevant. I know Mr. Kearney's argument is that it goes to her credibility, but I would argue that outside of her admitting to it and the fact that she openly offered that information, goes towards the fact that she is credible. She's obviously not lying about anything, and she's willing to tell Your Honor that she did slash his tires. So that's where the people stand in that.
Understanding that Ms. Fortier says the entirety of her conversation with Mr. Nunley was asking him, is there anything else incriminating beyond what she's already testified? He says no. There being no assurances, promises, statements about the likelihood of prosecution. If that's the representation, then I think that's fine. I would be concerned about someone deciding to continue testifying in light of that, but whatever. That's not my call to make. I think just as the point of clarification, actually, it doesn't matter if Ms. Connerly is talking about a potential criminal conduct in this situation, or if she had another incident, say, I don't know, she had a DUI or something where she had a pending case with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, or a case that hadn't been charged. The stuff is relevant because she has a motive to curry favor with the prosecution. Because if she cooperates with the prosecution's prosecution of Mr. Halliburton, then the less likely it is that she, in fact, is ultimately going to be charged for which her admitted criminal conduct is, as long as she's the complainant, she's not a defendant, so to speak. So that was why I was getting into that. I am satisfied with what Ms. Fortier has said, and I'm ready to cross-examine.
Okay. Did you get it for me, please?
Thank you, Judge.
Keep sheet. Oh, I was talking to Kelly.
I'm so used to video.
Was the microphone still bent down?
A little bit.
We came in here on Friday and the witness was very aggressive with the microphone on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Ma'am, Ms. Fortier,
Yes, Judge.
are you ready to proceed?
Judge, at this time, the witness is no longer mine. I've passed the witness to the defense.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Kearney, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Ma'am, Ms. Connerly? Nope, I'm gonna have you stop right here. No, come right here at this counter and spell your first and last name for,
Jasmine, JASMINECONERLY. Thank you.
watch your step. There's a little ramp right there. I'm gonna swear you in again. It's been quite a while. You swear affirm testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. You can have a seat. The last time we were here was March 15th. And Mr. Kearney, are you going to pick up where you left off, or
I am.
was there something else preliminary you want to start with?
No, I may
Okay.
rehash some of the details to
Thank you.
orient everyone to time, place, and location. All right, good afternoon, Ms. Connerly.
Good afternoon.
And now, when we were last here a month and a half ago, we were talking about an incident where you came home and part of your apartment was damaged. You had an altercation with Mr. Halliburton in the parking lot, and then ultimately you called the police. Do you recall being here and testifying about that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. And more specifically, where we left off was as we were describing, or as I was asking you questions about the incident, I said to you, in fact, you had slashed Mr. Halliburton's tires, and your answer was that was before. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
Okay. And when you,
Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes.
and so when you said that was before, you meant before the time we were specifically talking about at that time, correct?
Yes.
When that specifically happened, that was after you saw your apartment had been damaged and before you called the police, correct?
Yes.
And before Mr. Halliburton had left for his mother's house in Inkster, is that right?
Yes.
Ultimately, there was a second altercation out in Inkster, correct?
Yes.
I would object to the relevance of this. I think, like I stated before, we're here to talk about what Mr. Halliburton did in her apartment. She's not the one that's the defendant.
I'm simply establishing a delay in reporting here, Judge.
Overruled.
Thank you, Judge.
So it was after the altercation in Inkster when you eventually called the police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to make sure I understand the sequence of events properly. You come home and see your apartment is trashed.
Yes.
And we're gonna get into the specifics and details about that in a minute. But then you go, you slash Mr. Halliburton's tires. That happens next, right?
No,
Okay.
that did not happen like that.
So at what point do you claim Mr. Halliburton pointed a gun at you?
As soon as I approached him,
Okay. So you see your apartment is trashed. Where is Mr. Halliburton according to you when your apartment's trashed, when you discover your apartment is trashed?
he's in his car.
He's in his car where?
As far as I'm concerned, I was upstairs.
Okay,
As far as
so you
I'm
didn't-
concerned, he was downstairs in the parking lot
Where did you first lay eyes on Mr. Halliburton?
when I pulled into the parking lot.
Okay, so you came in, you pulled into the parking lot, you see Mr. Halliburton there, you go up to your apartment and discover that it is trashed.
Yeah.
You come down and then you have an altercation with or that's when you claim Mr. Halliburton pulls a gun on you.
Mr. Halliburton pulled a gun on me as soon as I approached him in the parking lot.
Okay. And it's after that you get a knife and slash his tires?
I plead the fifth.
Well, now we have a problem.
Can I do that?
It's already been the answer to this question's already been testified to.
I don't understand.
Hold on. She's already testified that she gets to her house or her apartment. That's when the altercation with the gun happens. She goes upstairs and discovers the apartment being the way that it is. She comes back downstairs. I believe the testimony, I don't know word for word because we continue to put this off, is that she comes back downstairs and I think Mr. Halliburton had already left at that. She calls him. That's when she goes to whatever location she goes to, and she says at that point that she slashed the tires. All of this has already been testified to. So I think in regards to this question specifically, there is no reason to plead the fifth because the testimony is already out. It's already been stated. We haven't gotten into any further information.
I think this is one reason it would be helpful to have her counsel here because she's asserting her fifth as to that direct question. I certainly think she should be made aware of whether or not she would also like to assert her fifth to the prior questions, or if she's just simply saying, I don't want to answer that. If she's asserting her fifth to this criminal conduct writ large, then I can't ask about any of those questions. And the prosecutor, right, Mr. Halliburton has a constitutional right to do that. But then the prosecutor has to meet the junction in the road. Do they want to prosecute this case and give her immunity or not? And then we have a confrontation problem. And so getting to that fork in the road would be why having Mr. Nunley here would be helpful rather than the witness just asserting the fifth to some questions and others. Is she asserting her fifth as to testifying about her potential criminal exposure based on her conduct?
Was Mr. Nunley made aware of today's continued exam?
Yes, and the last date.
And was it his, I guess, response to you or either one of you that he was not coming or what?
When I spoke to him in regards to our last date, which was, I think, was it April 5th? He indicated he didn't think it was necessary for him to be here. I didn't talk to him directly about today's date.
We're at a bit of a crossroads because Ms. Connerly appears to have already testified as to at least part of what her reaction was to what she found in her apartment, correct?
Correct. I was just.
Hold on.
Ma'am, I'm
Hold
not quite you yet.
Okay.
So where are we to go from here?
Judge, I just think any questioning outside of did you slash Mr.
Halliburton?
Halliburton's tires and the timeline of it, which she's already testified to, anything outside of that is not relevant to the Halliburton exam in regards to felony assault, felony firearm, and malicious destruction of property. I don't think it's relevant. I don't think the question should be asked, which would avoid her giving her answer of pleading the fifth.
Except the horse is sort of out of the proverbial barn now. She has asserted her fifth. The question is whether or not she was counseled appropriately as to whether or not she wanted to assert her fifth to potential criminal exposure based on her testimony, or if she wants to waive that fifth. And neither myself or Ms. Fortier has the actual obligation to advise her about that.
That would be true. And I would also note that neither myself nor Mr. Kearney was involved in the conversation between her and her counsel.
Which is exactly why I'm concerned about Mr. Nunley not being here or what exactly the understanding was with whatever counsel he gave Ms. Connerly. So the court's at a loss as well. She's already testified to to what I thought you were after. Is there, I don't know what to do.
That
at this
is-
point.
I
I mean, in all
we agree.
honesty,
I think we agree about that, but now she's asserted her fifth. And if she's going to continue to assert her fifth, I think the court would then be like, well, is there a valid fifth here? The answer is yes, there is.
I
And
suppose,
the fact that she's already said it once doesn't mean she can't assert her fifth. And then now we have
maybe we gingerly, I mean, Ms. Connerly doesn't appear to be stupid to me. I feel like maybe she could answer at least Mr. Kearney's question as to if she knows what she's doing when she says that without giving.
without disclosing her
Yeah, I think
conversation with
maybe we
Mr.
at least
Nunley.
attempt to do this. This is our third court date. This is a domestic violence incident in which it's, like, we already have difficulty, we've had the parties here. I do get everyone's constitutional rights. I am fully aware, did take common law in law school. But this keeps going on and on and on. I think maybe we take the steps that we can take before we throw up our hands and say, Mr. Nunley needs to be here and we cannot continue.
I'm not suggesting that we go that far. Counsel, I don't want Ms. Connerly to give testimony beyond that which is necessary to respond to Mr. Kearney's questions, but I also don't have the ability or don't have the desire to try to limit what Mr. Kearney asked. So that's why I say I feel like we're in a tough spot.
May I suggest that we could take a brief recess and see if either the court or Ms. Connerly could get a hold of Mr. Nunley and obviously he could describe what his advice would be for her in this particular situation, or have a conversation with her.
But they've already been down that path. I had supposed before we began.
That was my understanding.
Right, but if that conversation involved answer these questions, but assert your fifth as to these ones, that's different than what Mr. Nunley told Ms. Fortier that our expectation is she wasn't going to be asserting her fifth. So that's why I think clarification and maybe additional counsel. And then if Mr. Nunley says, this is a sticky situation, I think I need to be there, then it's that. Or if he's saying we're changing our position, we're now asserting our fifth, is a different situation. I mean, I think that's the best way to square what the court's saying and what Ms. Fortier is saying without necessarily resulting in another adjournment is what I'm trying to say.
Ms. Connerly,
Yes.
have you been following this conversation?
Yes.
Do you feel as if it's necessary for you to contact Mr. Nunley to continue your testimony this afternoon?
Yes, I do at this point, yeah.
Do you have a phone number for him?
No, I spoke to him, I think through Zoom.
I think I have his.
State Bar Directory has phone numbers.
Right. But then we'll have to take a recess. We'll put her somewhere where she can use a phone. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Here it is. Mr. Nunley's phone number is 586-778-4555.
Would you please, is there a phone in there? Okay. Ms. Carly, if you would go back through that back door, my court officer is going to take you to use a phone.
Do we need someone to explain to him what? Or
No,
no? Okay.
he couldn't stay in there with her anyway.
Are we off right now?
Mm-mm.
Keep it rolling? May I approach you?
Ma'am? Are you kidding me?
I knew I was gonna be good.
You swear from the content of the affidavit that you give us your knowledge and information. Why do I know that name? Nope. Thank you.
Pretty much all you can say about that.
Well, I got a call at 2:30 in the morning. Swore him in, signed it, and went right back to sleep and didn't remember what it was the next day.
2:30 in the morning.
2:30 in the morning, not on this, on something else, on another case.
Gotcha.
Oh, thank you. You didn't know I was Irish.
You knew I was, though. You were that just for me, I know.
Oh, okay. Here's a real question. Do you ever get used to
Oh, yeah. Oh, is there something else I have in there? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking, or is it? I didn't even look at the name on it.
Yeah, that's something else. I was probably looking for this the other day. I've got over 100 open cases right now, so I just shuffle stuff into the wrong file folders.
That's not what I want to hear.
Well, it's all scanned, so I still have it.
So you say,
Physically, the paper might just be in the wrong case file.
that never happens. So we have one straggler file on Wednesday morning. There's one pink file for Wednesday. I know, I did the same thing.
One?
One. I have no idea
Wonder
why.
what that's all about. What is it? Is it something weird?
Oh, why didn't I?
Straighten out paper.
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
had
do,
two.
whoever was there, yeah.
It was one for me and one for her, and so.
I just got the
That's
CPO.
bizarre.
So we go over there and he wants to put it up on
She
the,
got- she
above the
actually got
wood
it.
where that block wall
Catherine got it
is.
for me.
That's where he wants to put,
Wait, if you're looking out into the,
you're standing at the podium facing the bench.
Yeah, but he had a copy in the car.
Yeah, no, I know that,
okay, oh, okay.
but it wasn't actually in order yet.
Where
but I
is the
explained all
black
that to her,
one?
that he has a right to
No,
respond.
So you're facing the bench.
That must have been after them.
It's cased by that wood.
All he had was the petition, a copy of the petition.
Above that is just the block wall.
Is it pretty high up there?
Yes.
Well, it might have been reduced.
What's the matter with
No, but it's still an egg stock because he made multiple,
He doesn't drive. it.
well, he had.
You can't see me.
She didn't know he had.
Well, he still has
Maybe
them,
get
so
her
it's still not a misdemeanor.
No, because she didn't know he had a gun, I'm telling you.
I don't
It is-
know.
No, I mean, him being in possession of the gun, it's still CCW.
Oh,
once it's
that,
up there,
yeah,
it's
I was gonna
up
say
there.
the
And it's
stock,
pretty-
not even the stocking bar, I'm like, no,
And
it
it
is.
fits better, but then you still have the
I
issue.
know,
of
all I
that
had, what he
blank.
had a copy of was the
Yeah.
petition.
So I think it's arguably enough.
You're trying to
because
telepathically.
He says 18 times that she told him about the PPO and he just thought she was joking.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I don't know. No matter how many times you ask me, I'm gonna say, I
I
don't
think it's
know.
pretty clear that she doesn't want contact with you when you get this paperwork.
that's the issue. Just like it is every time.
I know.
I'm gonna see if Darcy can get me some water. And not trip on my purse on my way out.
These cases are just so frustrating to me because it's like in these DV situations, my people don't ever come. And so when I have one and we gotta put it off 8 times, like. Also, I think it needs to be noted that I've repeatedly stated if he files a police report and it comes to me as a warrant, that I will review the warrant, but there's not even a police report for it.
Yeah. No, there's nothing unusual about the case on Wednesday, but it's a single solitary case, and I didn't know there's a reason why.
Are we scheduled for, what's our schedule?
I don't know what we're scheduled
Okay,
for,
can't
since
sorry.
he broke and then fixed and then
You
broke again.
can't, yeah. I don't have you down for anything.
I was about to say, you're not it's green this week, right? And
Yes.
next week.
Right.
And then it's you again,
Then
for
it's me
2
again,
weeks.
for 2
Yep.
weeks.
The misdemeanor one is the one that's confusing to me. Every Tuesday docket, it rotates.
When was the last time you had a Tuesday docket with me?
I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of Judge Oakley's face lately.
I don't have to update it. I don't know what it is.
Next week is supposed to be in the new courthouse
That's the story in the street.
on Monday.
That's the story.
So if I have an exam on Monday, I should attempt to go to the new building.
We'll put those giant flags like they have in front of Liberty Tax out there.
She spoke to
Where'd Mr. Kearney go?
their thing, right?
So my horoscope says you just have to shake your head and roll your eyes when the weirdness comes.
I found, I'm gonna bring in this brass plaque tomorrow that comes from my office in Kalamazoo.
Along the same line.
Along the same lines. We're back on the record in the matter of Halliburton. Miss Connerly, have you had a chance to talk to Mr. Nunley?
I did,
Were you satisfied with that conversation?
yes,
Are you ready to proceed?
I am.
Mr. Kearney?
And let me just ask this, do you intend to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege? Any questions?
I do.
So now I think we do need an adjournment. And because they have to decide if they're gonna issue her immunity or not.
I just need to grab my calendar, Judge.
Please.
I suppose I would just apologize for just sitting while addressing you.
No,
I don't think anyone's gonna begrudge you that. It's Detective Frag.
right, right there.
I want to ask her an unrelated question. if
Sure,
we're
it's
not on the
unrelated.
record. Detective, can I ask you a question? Unrelated to any of
It
this.
depends on what the question is.
Don't ask her about hedgehogs or kangaroos.
Are they, do you still have those? I saw that was like 2019.
She just said, don't ask.
So, when,
I-
you can come here, sorry.
I would just note I'm rapidly approaching when it's not me anymore, and it has to be me. So if we could just,
We're bringing Pack and Play in.
Yeah, we don't,
There's another new
no,
woman.
I'm a Zoom from the hospital. How about that?
I'm a fan. If you're willing to wave and switch to Zoom, Mr. Kearney, I am a huge fan of moving.
I don't
things
think we
forward.
have a right to her being here in person, so I don't think she needs our consent to
Do you-
Zoom from wherever she
Oh,
wants.
you have the calendar. When's your next available day, Ms. Warrior?
Like ever?
Because I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Kearney, and then Marianne will look at my calendar, because I'll put you wherever we can fit you.
18.
I'm looking at April, that scares me.
3 months. I was just
Oh.
being a smart person.
Tuesday, May 18th.
That's, one day further than my tiny calendar goes. 1 second. That's great.
I would just, Ms. Connerly, is that date okay with you?
Yes.
Okay.
This is
I will be on vacation.
What's wrong?
I don't have my JIS.
I'm sorry, you said you'd be on what,
I
ma'am?
also would note, I love having you here.
Did you say something?
No,
Oh,
she
okay.
asked if that
Detective
date gonna be available for me. I said yes.
I know, I'm not testing.
This
You're
little
fine.
corner makes it hard to hear your voice, and
I know, I
thought
feel like I have to go
when
up.
the detectives
just to
start
talk.
talking, I thought it was you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it should be okay.
Marianne,
I just want to go just double check. It looks like you're free, but JIS, someone took it off of here. Do you mind?
oh, real quick.
And if Ms. Connerly doesn't even ride.
I was gonna ask you, are you familiar with the process for destroying fingerprints And arrest cards.
Lie in the scrub board?
What about Nunley? Do we need him here?
If they go to where they were arrested and speak the record, there's something they have
No.
to
No.
on iChat,
I hope
Oh,
not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
which I'm not really familiar with.
So if I want to send it to.
Let's do it.
And whatever local police. Order that says destroy them.
Wherever they were.
So would you make a note?
should be able to handle
Yeah.
it.
It's
Mr.
like
Kearney asked about destroying fingerprints, and I have a good story. I just don't want to tell it while we're on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay. So we're adjourning and in this, what, 2-week adjournment, what's gonna happen?
I'm gonna find out about immunity, Judge. And I suppose the answer to that question will determine the next step.
There is space, time available on the 18th. I'll leave the time up to you. Marianne, we have nothing scheduled?
Correct.
Do either of you have a preference, AM, PM?
I have a 8 AM probable cause conference, but nothing else.
I'm gonna be honest, it takes me an hour to get here, so the later in the day, it's better.
So at this time, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock,
One's fine, Judge.
Ms. Conlon?
When it's fine,
1 o'clock on May 18th?
it's fine with me.
I have a question.
Ma'am,
Should the answer of my office be no of my supervisor? Does anyone have a problem if we just do Zoom? Mr. Kearney, do you get what I'm trying to ask?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Actually
absolutely.
asking
If
it?
that's gonna be, if that's gonna be the case, if
Okay.
there's not gonna be a grant of immunity, I have no objection to Zoom.
call Marianne. If you give me 5
Perfect.
minutes notice, we'll get on and we'll do whatever you need to do.
Thank you.
Reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. So this matter is again adjourned until May 18, 2021 at 1 PM. We'll have it live unless I receive notification from plaintiff, from prosecution and defense before that we do not need the live date. Anything else, Ms. Poirier? Anything else, Mr. Kearney?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Ms. Carly, thank you for coming back in. Thank you, Mr. Howard.